Hello, here we have Archibald Michael Graham, who believes banks are woke.
Should we talk about banks for a moment? Because banks seem to have lost the plot of late.
The banks have always been insane.
We know about the Coutts Bank fiasco when Nigel Farage had his account taken away from him and he then sort of managed to completely and utterly ridicule and make fun of that bank, not in a very, very serious way.
The fiasco of a posh bank wanting to cut ties with a far-right lunatic. And I know the argument is that it could happen to anybody, but that's why I'm not in favour of an essential service being privatised. But these people are hypocrites. They want a deregulated free market until it no longer suits them.
It then became clear that an awful lot of banks, and included in that all of the big high street banks, the big four as they used to call them, not just NatWest, which owns Coutts, but also Lloyds, also HSBC, also Barclays, they all basically admitted that they do have a policy which could result in the closure of a bank account if they don't like what you're doing, or in some cases, what you're saying.
Yes, Mike, it's the free market and they are private companies. You can also be banned from pubs and be refused entry into a shop if you're wearing a hood.
Get out of my pub!
At the moment, we're in the grip, you might say, of an inflationary spiral, of a cost of living crisis, of a situation where many people are finding it hard to make ends meet. So you would think the banks would see that as an opportunity to help people.
When have the banks ever helped people in need? The only opportunities the banks will see is the possibility of repossessing your house.
To be of more assistance. But of course what we have instead is the invasion of the wokeists. The banking sector has become one of the most woke sectors of industry in this country. And given that it's such a big part of our industry, because financial services are one of the biggest exports that this country actually has.
When you start thinking banks are woke, then the word woke really has lost all meaning.
I would be rather surprised if you didn't know, for example, that the Bank of England has issued guidelines to people who work there to say that people of any gender can become pregnant, that they've got some gender-neutral toilets on the 7th floor, and that basically what you should do is take more care about how you address people's pronouns than whether you should lend them money or not.
The banks, like all these companies, don't care about wokeness. They, like all capitalist companies, care about money. And if anything, banks probably care about money more than most. The reason banks set these types of policies is so they don't get complaints or sued, internally or externally. The people at the top of these companies just want to make money and not deal with problems. Banks are not actively pro-trans, they are anti-complaints and anti-getting sued.
The Bank of England at the moment stands accused of putting the interest rates up for the 14th time in a row yesterday to 5.25%, making life very, very difficult for an awful lot of people.
The Bank of England is very different to a high street bank.
On top of that, we had the news yesterday that if you run a gun club or if you get involved in some kind of hunting, you may indeed have a problem getting a bank account. You may indeed have a problem transferring money. You might not be able to actually take any payments on credit cards or on debit cards because apparently the banking sector doesn't like what you're doing.
Yes, banks are anti a weapon that could be used to rob a bank, although denying a bank account wouldn't necessarily prevent that.
We then find out today that an organisation called UK Finance, which is a trade body for British bankers, has issued a statement regarding guidelines as to things you can and cannot say. One of the things they say you shouldn't say anymore is black market. You shouldn't say dummy, as in somebody with a lack of knowledge in any given subject. You should call them a beginner. Well, it's not quite the same, is it? Somebody who's a beginner isn't a dummy, and somebody who's a dummy isn't always a beginner. So once again, the language is being completely and utterly changed to mean something else. Kill chain. Apparently, that used to be used as a cyber attack reference. Now apparently you're supposed to say attack chain. What's the difference? Man in the middle. Also, something that shouldn't be said, that should be changed to network interception. And sanity check, just in case people think it's rude to call someone insane, should be changed to functional test.
It's not wokeness, it's banks protecting themselves against a customer who may be sensitive to this type of language. So to frame this as the banks is stupid. If Mike wants to try and have a go at anybody, it would be the customers who may be sensitive to this type of language, not the bank who just care about money.
I mean, I'm sick to death of these wokeists who want to change the English language and make it less accurate. The whole point of words is that they're supposed to describe something accurately. If you start describing things inaccurately, nobody knows what you're talking about.
Mike, I never know what you're talking about.
If somebody started talking to you about a network interception, what does that even mean?
Just ask what it means, Mike.
If somebody said to you that somebody who was rather stupid was a beginner, that's kind of insulting to beginners, isn't it?
If you're happy to go around calling people stupid, why would you care about hurting the feelings of beginners? That's some weird selective empathy.
What about Jeremy Hunt? I mean, apparently staff at a bank that refused Jeremy Hunt an account described the Conservatives as evil.
They do make a good point.
What? This is the kind of thing that's going on out there, and it's wrong. So can we please ask the banking business to get back to banking? Just bank. Don't debank. Bank.
Wasn't it the banks doing banking that led to the 2008 financial collapse?
And do the banking business right, which is making money for your customers, making sure that you're supporting investors, making sure that you're supporting the British economy. Surely it's not that difficult, is it? Goodness me.
I think Mike's a bit of a beginner.